Okay, so now that we are successfully registering users to our app, the next thing we need to do will be to implement the login functionality. But before we go ahead and start writing the code to do the login, there's something basic that we need to have, which is a place to go to immediately the login is successful. So we're going to go ahead and add a new view controller. So we're going to call this view controller the main view controller because it's going to be where the bulk of the things that we're going to be doing on this app is going to be happening. So I'm going to go to the toolbox and I'm going to drag a view controller to the storyboard. Alright, now the first thing we need to do will be to change the name or the class of the view controller. So we need to go to properties and change this to main view controller. Alright, now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and copy the name of the class. We're going to also paste it in the storyboard ID. So the storyboard ID, it's more like the ID that helps us to identify every single view controller in our storyboard. So this could be very useful, especially when we want to navigate from one view controller to the other. So now that we have this, I'm going to just go ahead and drag a label to our view controller. And this is going to read main page. Okay, now let's head over to login view controller and implement our login. Alright, now the first thing we need to do, just like we did in the register view controller, is to create a click event handler for our login button. So I'm going to have login button dot touch up inside. Now the next thing we need to do will be to grab the inputs, that is the email and password inputs from the user. So here I'm going to have string email and password. So email is going to be equal to email test.test and password is going to be password test.test. Before we can proceed and try to log in the user, we need to verify that the email address is very valid, which means that it must contain the @ sign, and also we need to validate our password because when we are registering, we made it so that a password must have up to 8 characters. So we also need to go ahead and make some validations based on these rules that we set while we are registering. So let's go ahead and do the validation for our email. Right, so this is exactly the same thing that we did in our registration page. So we created an alert to tell the user to provide a valid email address, that is when the email does not contain an @ sign. So let's go ahead and do validation for our password. So what we want to do is to go ahead and say else if password.length is less than 8. So we need to tell the user to provide a valid password. Okay, so we've successfully done the validations. Now the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and start logging in our user. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say auth. So let's go ahead and resolve this. So I'm going to have auth.default instance .sign in with password. Alright, so here we need to go ahead and provide or supply the email and the password. And the next thing we need to do will be to go ahead and add our old data result handler. So here I'm going to have old data result. So this is going to be old data result. And we're going to have ns error. So this is going to be a lambda expression. Now all we need to do is to confirm if the login was successful or not. So to check if the login was successful, I'm going to go ahead and say if result data the user.uid is not equal to null. So if this is not equal to null, it means that the user was successfully signed in. So if login was successful, what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and transfer or send our user to our main view controller. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and say main view controller. I'm going to call it, this will be equal to this the storyboard dot instantiate view controller. So we need to provide our storyboard ID. So we remember that our storyboard ID was exactly the same name as our view controller. So I'm going to copy this test and paste it here. So I'm going to have this as main view controller. Alright, now the next thing we need to do will be to set the presentation style. So I'm going to have main view controller dot modal presentation style. So this is going to be equal to full screen. So with the introduction of iOS 13.1, we now have different types of modal presentation. So your normal view controller can even be a modal. So finally, we need to go ahead and now have present view controller. And here we need to pass it our main view controller. And this is going to be true and this is going to be null. Alright. So this is what will happen if the login was successful. So if the login is not successful, we still need to go ahead and display some type of information to communicate to the user what is really going on. So I'm going to go ahead and say else. I'm going to copy this. So the title is going to be error and the message is going to be error dot localized description. So this is basically all that we need to do here. Now I need to go back to my main storyboard and I need to set the login page to be the initial view controller, which is this. I'm going to go ahead and tick this box. So as you can see, the entry point is now this view controller. Now to verify that our login is working just the way we expected it, I'm going to go ahead and run our app. Okay, so our app is fully loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and provide one of the emails that we used to register. So I remember appropriately, we registered uchenna@gmail.com and the password is 1234567 So I'm going to go ahead and click on login. So if the login is successful, we'll find ourselves in the next page. Okay, so seems our application run into some kind of error. Alright, so seems something is wrong with our implementation. So we're gonna go ahead and make some code tweaks and see if we can resolve this. Okay, here in our login view controller, I think the first thing that we should have checked for should be the error. So I'm gonna say if error is equal to null. So I'm going to copy this and paste this here. And I'm going to copy this and paste this here. Alright. So this is going to help us to find out why our app is crashing and possibly fix it. So let's go ahead and run our app. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on login and bam. So we now have an error. So it's saying there is no user record corresponding to this identifier. Okay, so it seems that we've deleted ufinix@gmail.com. So this is the email address that we are using now. So I'm going to go ahead and try to resolve this. Okay, so now that we've changed the email address, so let's go ahead and click on login. Bam! So as you can see, our login was successful and we are in a new page. So congratulations guys, we've been able to do the login and registration pages successfully. So this will be all for now. See you in the next class.